By editing, we make everything frequently seem more exciting than it really is. Incidentally, when I used to teach, this was one of the first studies ever done of television. Took a parade in New York City for General MacArthur, had just been fired by Truman, but took a parade. And a big parade through New York, which was being one of the first live events to be televised. And a very simple study. They interviewed people who went to the parade in person, and they interviewed people who watched the parade on television. And they wanted to see if their perceptions were different. Really incredibly simple. The people who watched it on television talked about how exciting it was, how much they wished they could have been there. And the people who were there in person said, boring, waste of time. Because when you watch it on television, the camera zooms right in. You're always in the center of action. No one gets in your way. When you watch it on television, if you have to use the bathroom, it's just down the hall where you are. If you're hungry, you get food. When you go in person, frequently things happen, and people say, what's that? What just happened? By the time you figure it out, the parade's gone. You have to wait 10 more minutes for something else to happen. The bathroom is God knows where. You're hungry. So that just showed by focusing on action, you make things seem more exciting than they are. I don't think I've talked about that study in 10 years.
Attracts a lot of viewers.
I think digital changes everything. I don't think there's a business or activity that's not affected, and most businesses and activities will be transformed. But one thing we've seen is we've never seen so much good content. We've never seen so much bad content. Things like YouTube just flood the web with content, and a small percentage of it is compelling content that may get, in a couple of cases, 2 billion views. Most of it is unprofessional junk, or to use a really crude word, crap. And one of the things we've learned, this is some of the advice I offer to movie studios, but it applies to all content, is the only thing that matters is content anymore. I grew up in Hollywood where the mantra is content is king. I would argue today, pardon the incorrect grammar, content's kinger than it's ever been. And so great content, wherever it comes from, 1/1000th of 1% of YouTube, on HBO or Netflix or wherever, great content will always be found. And until today, it had to be found through TV Guide, which has largely disappeared, through electronic program guides, which are disappearing, and now great content is found through social media. So I think great content will always stand out, and through social media, people will find that 1/1000th of 1% on YouTube, as well as the great new television shows on networks and other places. So I'm very bullish on great content finding an audience, whether it's reality or scripted or whatever, or from somebody's, it is reality when it comes from someone's cell phone. Historically, it has always been the profit center, and then in the 90s, we worked with the 4 broadcast networks under this antitrust waiver studying television. The real appeal, the first reality we saw in television were things like World's Most Dangerous Animals, World's Fastest Car Chases, and then shows like Survivor, which were pseudo-reality. And originally, those were more profitable because they didn't require scripts, they didn't require professional actors, they generally didn't require sets being built the way a sitcom or a drama did. So in the beginning, reality was hugely profitable, but as shows like Survivor or Dancing with the Stars or American Idol or The Voice became really popular, they became just as expensive. So I don't think one is more expensive than the other than real raw reality, where there still are no screenwriters, no actors, but when those things, if they recur as they get popular, they become just as expensive. Yeah, I mean, we found that there really were interesting stories in all kinds of places. Whether it was Honey Boo Boo, whether it was Duck Dynasty, whether it was pawn shops, that there were interesting stories if those stories were pretty heavily edited. Of course, the breakout of all of that, for better or worse, I'd probably argue worse, is Keeping Up with the Kardashians. Which made them, the line they used to use for Zsa Zsa Gabor, but Kim Kardashian has taken it to a level never seen before. And it's a great line. They're famous for being famous. And that's television. So we found little bits of gold in almost every story. As we sit, we're 2 days away from the second presidential debate. And one of the questioners had his 15 minutes of fame yesterday, Ken Bone, who now is a Halloween costume, his red shirt, which he says he only wore because he put on a suit, found he had gained 30 pounds and tore the seat, wore a red sweater, which is now out of stock at Amazon. These things come from the strangest places. I don't think there is a snowball's chance in hell he went to that debate thinking he was going to be an internet star. It was on Jimmy Kimmel last night. So we find these little nuggets, whether it comes, and of course we also have the reality has the added bonus, not just that it makes up so much of traditional television, but cell phones. So we now have majority of the population carrying a camera and a video camera with them close to 24/7. There's almost nothing that happens anymore. We see that in very serious ways with police chases and shootouts, where even in addition to the police who are supposed to be wearing cameras, we frequently see there's nothing that happens anymore that's not being recorded.